How long have you been at the music business?
Well, actually, February 1973 was my first job in a recording studio in a record plant in New York City, so 40 years.
40 years. And
I was 6.
the music industry was a really huge deal and really financially successful in those days. The traditional record, let me call it the record industry.
At the time, it was starting to get really hot. The music was the renaissance of the 60s, as I call it. That was really an incredible time. In the 70s, which I was involved in making music, in the 60s, I was in a little band, but then I wanted to be in music, so I wasn't talented enough to stay in the band. And so I started engineering, and the business was really building. And then the CD came. That was
what? Was that good or bad?
Well, it was great for the business. To me, it wasn't great for music, or it wasn't great technically.
I want you to explain this because I think this is going to shed some light. Your feeling about the CD going all the way back then is going to shed some light on what we're going to talk about.
Well, first
about what you're doing now. What was wrong with the CD?
Well, the wrong with the CD, first of all, we used to be contained to to get it to sound great, 20 minutes aside. So that was an automatic limiter.
On an LP, 20 minutes aside.
Yeah, so you get Bruce Springsteen, he makes Born to Run, there's 8 songs, right? You get Tom Petty, Damn the Torpedoes, there's 9 songs.
Which you also produced, right?
Yeah, that's when I was a producer, right? So all of a sudden, you get a CD, and you have people, who, a lot of self-importance involved, right? They say, I have 18 songs to put on this record. Well, no one has 18 songs that belong on a record, And we've proven that, haven't we? And I think that right there, 2 things happen. I think that because of the gush of money in the record industry, Wall Street started paying attention. And when Wall Street started paying attention, and the album, so you had record companies signing, if there was Bob Seger in Detroit, they'd go find some guy that looked like Bob Seger with 1 song, and they'd put his album out with 17 other songs, and it started to deteriorate.
And charge everybody in this room $18 because they really only wanted the 1 song.
So I believe what happened when Napster came around is you gave the audience what they wanted was an excuse to not buy the goddamn thing, in the first place. And that's how I feel about it. I feel that the quality of the quality of the music it started to deteriorate because of you had some people making great records. There's always some Elton John. You got guys they're just tremendously talented, but labels started putting anything out. It's my
now is that still now? Let's fast forward to today.
And now they're broke.
You still work? They are, but you work for one of them, right? You still work at Universal, right?
Yeah, but you just can't put that much. We're all starting to realize. I go back to 2000 when the business is actually starting to get a little healthier now. But I go back to 2000 when, what was it, 1999 when Napster came out? I'm not really sure.
90s, yeah.
I just had a weird feeling. So I took a ride down. I met with Les Wadez from Intel, one of the founders.
Right.
And I went there as a record producer, even though I had Interscope at the time. I went there as a guy who said, look, this whole rip it, burn it, all this stuff, we can work together. We could help differentiate you. We could make your company more important than others through differentiation.
This was Intel.
Yeah. Just because it was one of the companies I felt I could get to meet, right? And it was before I met Steve Jobs, right? So I went there and I said, I wanted to develop a relationship with one of the guys that really understood the game to get credibility. So he looked at me and he said, what a great story. He says, Jimmy, but the only problem is not every industry was made to last forever.
That's what Les says.
Yeah. So I leave there. I called Doug Morris, who's, I was with for 30 years. We're great friends. I said, we're screwed. Right? He said, what do you mean we're screwed? I said, these guys don't want our land. They want our water to take back with them and leave us without water here. They don't want our land. And, he didn't know what I meant. But at that moment, I knew that everything, which is Beats' mantra, my company Beats, which is everything we know is now wrong. And that's how Beats started. Oops, there goes that brain. You have the same
Jobs.
brain. That's right, okay, I remember that, that's right.
So was it
the only guy
before or
that can
after?
forget Steve Jobs, right?
Was it
So
before or after the iPod
it was
and iTunes?
It was right after the iPod, before iTunes, because he wanted to show Doug iTunes. So Doug sent me as his emissary because I'm on the West Coast. So I went up there and I took the first meeting with Steve Jobs. And as soon as I saw it, I knew all I would think about is how our lawyers would never let this music get online legally. Remember, Napster had been out of business for 2.5 to 3 years already. So with Napster gone and nothing legal online because they couldn't figure out the licenses, right? They were all so just worried and frightened, scared to death. The way to compete with free, a kid had to, in order to buy a record, if he's doing his homework on his laptop, he has to stop, call his mother, drive me to the record store, go to the record store, spend $15, $18 or whatever it is, come back, start his homework again, or just go to Kazaa and steal it.
Right.
I was born in Brooklyn. I know what the answer to that is, right? so you know, I said, Doug, we have to do this. But we're giving him all. I said, we're never going to have music online legally unless somebody jams it right now. And I was a big proponent of Steve's, which I was till the very end, and I still am. You know, I just think that he had the right idea. Apple got everything right except that earbud. You know, it wasn't so much the files, because your sound system is only as good as its weakest link. And when you have an entire generation hailing Apple and thinking because that earbud is in there and it's white, and that means you've got class or style or swag because you have that white earbud.
Even if it cost him a nickel.
It sounded terrible. It had no emotion. Why? Because it was flat. Steve liked that. They wanted it flat. That was in there to see if it worked. That's it. You know, it was no emotion. So Dre used to come to me all the time. He said, you know, I don't care about the stealing music part. He says, what I really care about is that the music is not being interpreted right. I spend months on one song, and you know, it sounds terrible. It sounds terrible on laptop, on PCs, and it sounds terrible on this earbud. So we got together and we decided to try to move the thing over and make young kids listen to sound. So if Beats did anything, it got young people interested in audio again, which really was not cool for a very long time.
Right.
No one cared about audio.
You're about to try to do more to solve the music problem and bring back what you consider the real art of music. Is that right?
Well, what we're doing is there's this sea of music. There's an ocean of music out there, and there's absolutely no curation for it. And, you know, your friends can't curate for you, because if your friends can, it's all about what song comes next. No one knows what song comes next. I guarantee you, everybody in the audience, including you and me, really struggle to get music for the actual thing, the event or the thing that they're doing at that moment. The gym, the dinner party, a drive to Coachella, whatever that thing is. They have the information. Apple knows a lot about your musical taste. You know, Google knows a lot. They have a lot of information.
Right.
Facebook, but no one's using it to curate. And right now, everything is, here's 16, 20, 25 million songs. Give me your credit card for the other systems. Good luck. And we're trying to step in, and because we have the commitment of the brand of Beats, and we have some kind of, it's got some loyalty there, we're going to try to harness that and get people music in a comfortable way.
So what do you mean when you say curation? I mean, Steve Jobs probably said curation 1,000 times on stage.
They never
at our
told you what
conference.
song comes next.
No, he wasn't talking about music per se. He was talking about curating apps and curating, you know, whatever. He was beating up.
You know that FM radio is still listened to more than anything else? You know why? They tell you what song comes next. Everyone wants to know what song comes next, and who doesn't know what song comes next is your best friend on Facebook. Because if he knew what song comes next, he'd be getting $250,000 a night, like David Guetta is, to tell you what song comes next.
What song comes next, or what song should come next?
No, what song comes next.
All right. But that would be an example.
Yeah.
Something. You have to find some way to know what
Yeah,
music
well,
I
we're going to
like.
communicate with you. We have 5 million people on Beats.com right now that are all music fanatics. We're going to, we assume they'll be some of the first users. We're going to take information. We started taking information from them already. We started making incredible lists for certain archetypes of people, and we're going to interact with them constantly. And we're going to have a mathematical and a human solution, and we're trying to build algorithms that will make them work together.
So, all right, so you're going to learn stuff about me. I assume you're going to tell me you're going to do this, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to just go do it.
Yeah.
You're going to get my,
Yeah.
can we
No, you volunteer.
scrape your hard drive? Can we look at your Facebook?
Well, people are going to volunteer.
Whatever, okay.
So we're putting a lot of elbow grease, and we're putting what we know how to do, which is curate. The guys that I have on my team and our history in music, and because we know where all the guys that were in radio, where they work now, when they were fired, and what the old guys are, and the new guys, and we have all that information. And we are making tons and tons of curated lists that we're going to interact with you, and we're going to get something that serves up to you. If you're going to the gym, remember, we know where you are tomorrow. If you're going to the gym 5 days a week, we know that, right? So when you wake up in the morning, there's going to be a list for the gym.
Seriously?
Yeah.
And I won't have to make it?
No.
You're going to make it for
search,
me?
we have failed you.
I have to search?
No.
I have to build a
No,
playlist?
you can search.
Yeah, but I don't have to.
No.
I'm going to wake up in the morning. It's going to
Yes.
know that I go to the gym.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a little bit like artificial intelligence
Yes.
for music.
Yes.
It's going to say, Walt, get off your ass.
Here's 6
Here's
things.
some music that'll get you off your ass.
Here's 6 choices. You want to go in deeper, you can go in deeper. But for right now, what people need is easy. We need service. No one's going to pay for music like that. iTunes was great, but it needs a step forward now. I really believe that.
Okay.
I believe that as a record producer. I believe it as a record company guy, and I believe it as a guy who's starting this thing. I just believe it.
When's this going to become
I'm
available?
hoping over the summer, you know. Most technology companies are culturally inept. I don't care what they do, they're never going to get curation right. That's not what they do. The way content companies never get technology right, they never get culture right. So they can hire anyone they want to sing in front of their advertisers, at their commercials or whatever they want to do, but they're not going to get that right. They're not going to get curation right. And we're going to be miles ahead of them. So I don't care what they do. I just, you know.
You don't care what Google and Apple.
I mean, I care.
Microsoft, they have a lot of music, you know, in their
They're
system.
all the same service, except Apple. Apple's iTunes a la carte. It's very straight ahead. It's very Apple. You know, you want to buy a song? It's fantastic, right? What they do great. We're doing something completely different. We are going to service you in the music space for what we think you need, which is basically what song comes next.
What song comes next?
Which is so important because no one listens to one song and stops.
Right.
You
No
know?
one does.
I mean, some people do, but not when you're driving or what are you going to
No,
you know,
that's right.
Right? Or when you're working
I just
out.
put it on shuffle, but that's not.
You put what on shuffle?
This is stuff I happen to have.
6,000 songs you
Yeah,
put
right.
on shuffle, right?
Right.
Well, you know.
What's wrong with that?
It's
Steve Jobs used to stand up and say shuffle was the greatest thing in the world.
why did Bruce Springsteen take 6 months to sequence Born to Run with 8 songs? Because it's important what song comes next. Music was created around a piece of music that's an hour long. They don't just mix it all up. You know, it has to be curated. It has to get as an emotional.
Okay, well,
flow
suppose
to it.
I set the iPod in my car to just play Born to Run and, you know, start to finish the
That
way you
works.
recorded it.
That works.
Then I know what song
That
comes
works,
next.
but people want now. This entire generation is being brought up to like different kinds of music at different times. They're very eclectic. My daughter plays Patsy Cline and Beyonce on the same playlist, right? So we have to learn
That's
that
an
about
interesting
her.
playlist.
It
Patsy
is.
Cline and Beyonce.
Well, it is. I'll tell you, and there's an emotional chord with her. These kids are all technology prone, arts prone. There's a different kid out there right now, and we can't just give them albums. They're telling us no, right? I mean, how
Yeah.
loud do they have to scream it? They don't want.
So in a way, you're doing a virtual album here by creating a
Yes,
list that I would like.
absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jimmy.